The introductory part of human rights is over. Coming to the human rights under Constitution of India. Human rights in India. Our country was one of the original signatories to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and therefore the framers of Indian Constitution were very much influenced by the concept of human right and recognized as well as guaranteed most of the rights which were subsequently embodied in the international covenant in the year 1966. The preamble of the Indian Constitution reflects the inspiring ideals with the specific mention of individual's dignity. That is, dignity of the individual. Human rights under the Constitution of India. As we know, India being a democratic country, one of the main objectives is the protection of the basic rights of the people. Government of India has given due consideration to the recognition and protection of human rights. The Constitution of India recognizes these rights of people and shows deep concern towards them. UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, contains civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights. These are the rights under UDHR. This constitution guarantees most of the human rights contained in UDHR. That is, our constitution accepted all these rights. Okay. Then part 3 of the constitution contains civil and political rights. It is divided into two parts. That is, part 3 of the constitution contains civil and political rights, whereas economic, social and cultural rights have been included under part 4 of the constitution. All the statutes have to be in concurrence of the provisions of the constitution. Moving on to a very important topic, that is the fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution or the Constitution of India is the supreme law of India, which came into existence on January 26, 1950. It is the longest written constitution of any sovereign country in the world, containing 444 articles, 12 schedules, 22 parts and 94 amendments. And what is meant by the term fundamental rights? Fundamental rights are essential human rights that are offered to every citizen irrespective of the caste, race, creed, place of birth, religion or gender. These are equal to freedoms, and these rights are essential for personal good and the society at large. Fundamental rights included under Articles 14 to 32, which come under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. Altogether, 6 rights are there. The first one is the right to equality, which is falling under Article 14 to 18. The right to equality under Article 14 to 18. Second one, right to freedom. Article 19 to 22, containing the right to freedom. Third one is right against exploitation, which falls under Article 23 to 24. Then right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. Right to freedom of religion, which is falling under Article 25 to 28. Then cultural and educational rights, Article 29 to Article 30. And right to constitutional remedies, that is under Article 32. Okay. And moving to the first fundamental right, that is the right to equality. What is this right to equality? Equality before law. Article 14 of the Constitution guarantees all citizens shall be equally protected by the laws of the country. That is the first one, equality, right to equality. Second, social equality and equal access to public areas. Social equality and equal access to public areas. Article 15 of the Constitution states that no person shall be discriminated on the basis of caste, color, language, etc. Every person shall have equal access to public places like park, cinema theatre, museum, etc. Third one is equality in matters of public employment. Equality in matters of public employment. Article 16 of the Constitution lays down that the state cannot discriminate against anyone in the matters of employment. All citizens can apply for government jobs. They are free to apply for any of the government jobs. Next one is abolition of untouchability. Abolition of untouchability. Article 17 of the Constitution abolishes the practice of untouchability. Next one is abolition of titles. That is, Article 18 of the Constitution prohibits the state from conferring any titles. Citizen of India cannot accept titles from the foreign states also. Abolition of titles, Article 18, where the Constitution prohibits the state from conferring any titles and the citizens of India cannot accept titles from foreign states also. Next one is right to freedom. Right to freedom. Freedom of speech and expression. First one is freedom of speech and expression, which enable an individual to participate in public activities. The phrase freedom of press has not been used in Article 19, but freedom of expression includes freedom of the press also. Okay, that is the first one, freedom of speech and expression. Next is freedom to assemble peacefully without arms, on which the state can impose reasonable restrictions in the interest of public order and the sovereignty and integrity of the country. Next, freedom to form associations or unions, on which the state can impose reasonable restrictions on what? On the freedom in the interest of the public order, morality and the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. Okay. Next is the fourth one is the freedom to move freely throughout the territory of India. Every citizen is having the right to move freely throughout the territory of India. Next one is the freedom to reside and settle in any part of the territory of India. That is his fundamental right. Okay. Next one under the right to freedom is freedom to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business, on which the state may impose reasonable restrictions in the interest of the general public. Thus, there is no right to carry on a business which is dangerous or immoral. Next fundamental right is right against exploitation. Right against exploitation. Abolition of trafficking in human beings. Next, abolition of employment of children below the age of 14, below 14 years in dangerous jobs like factories and mines. Trafficking in humans for the purpose of slave trade or prostitution is also prohibited by law. Next right is the right to freedom of religion. According to the constitution, all religions are equal before the state and no religion shall be given preference over the other. All the religions are having equal rights. Citizens are free to preach, practice, and propagate any religion of their choice. They can propagate any religion of their choice. Religious communities can set up charitable institutions of their own. Activities like religious activities, mainly they can perform religious activities. No person shall be compelled to pay taxes for the promotion of a particular religion. A state-run institution cannot impart education that is pro-religion. That is also important. Next one is cultural and educational rights, which is falling under the articles 29 and 30. Cultural and educational rights. Any community which has a language and a script of its own, has the right to conserve and develop it. All minorities, religious minority, can set up their own educational institutions to preserve and develop their own culture. They have the freedom for that. And next one, the last one is the right to constitutional remedies. Right to constitutional remedies. Right to constitutional remedies empowers the citizen to move a court of law in case of any denial of the fundamental rights. This procedure of asking the court to preserve or safeguard his fundamental rights can be done in various ways. Various ways by the court. The courts can issue various kinds of writs. WRITS, writs. These writs are habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, qua warranto, and certiorari. Now we will discuss on the directive principles of state policy. As I told you earlier, the Constitution of India is the supreme law of India, which is having several articles, schedules, parts, amendments, etc., of which this particular title or the topic, Directive Principles of State Policy, falls under Part 4. Part 4. About the history of Directive Principles of State Policy. It is a concept which was borrowed from Irish Constitution. The makers of the Constitution of India were greatly influenced by the Irish nationalist movement. The principles have been inspired by the directive principles given in the Constitution of Ireland and also by the principles of Gandhism and relate to social justice, economic welfare, foreign policy, and legal and administrative matters. What is this directive principles of state policy? Directive principles of state policy are the guidelines to the central and the state governments of India to be kept in mind while framing laws and policies. Understood? Here, the guidelines that should be followed while framing the laws and policies by the state and the center. Okay. These provisions contained in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution are not enforceable by any court. What are the characteristic features of this directive principles of state policy? It is aiming at the first, create social and economic conditions under which the citizens can lead to a good life. The first one is to create social and economic conditions under which the citizens can lead a good life. Second one is to establish social and economic democracy through a welfare state. They act as a yardstick in the hands of the people to measure the performance of the government. Next one, the directive principles are non-judiciable rights of the people. It is non-judiciable rights of the people. The directive principles, though not judiciable, they are fundamental in the governance of the country. Though it is not judiciable, they are fundamental in the governance of the country. Article 36 defines the state includes the government and the Parliament of India and the government and the legislature of each of the states and all local and other authorities within the territory of India or under the control of the government of India. Article 36. Article 36, definition of a state. What is the definition of a state? That is very clearly given under the Article 36. Once again, I repeat, the state, definition of a state, includes the government and the Parliament of India and the government and the legislature of each of the states and all local or other authorities within the territory of India or under the control of the government of India. Okay. Article 37. Application of principles. Article 38. The state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of the people. That is Article 38 under Directive Principle of State Policy. Next one is Article 39. Under Article 39, certain principles of policy to be followed by the state are equal rights to men and women, ownership of resources, equal pay for equal work, protection of children. Then Article 39A, equal justice and free legal aid to citizens having economic or other disabilities. Equal justice and free legal aid to citizens having economic or other disabilities. Article 40, organization of village panchayats. Article 41, right to work, to education and to public assistance in certain cases. Article 42, provision for just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief. That is Article 42, provision for just and humane conditions of work and maternity relief. Article 43, living wage, good working conditions, etc. for the workers. Article 43A, participation of workers in management of industries. Next one is Article 44, uniform civil code for the citizens. Very important. Article 44, uniform civil code for the citizens. Article 45, provision for free and compulsory education for children. That is compulsory education for all the children in our country. Article 46, promotion of educational and economic interests of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections. That is Article 46. Article 47, duty of the state is to raise the level of nutrition and the standard of living to improve the public health of its citizens. Here the focus is on nutrition. Article 48, organization of agriculture and animal husbandry. Article 48A, protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forest and wildlife. Article 49, protection of monuments and places and objects of national importance. That is Article 49. I repeat, protection of monuments and places and objects of national importance. Article 50, the separation of judiciary from executive. Article 51, promotion of international peace and security, just and honorable relations, encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration. And next one is the implementation of DPSP. How it can be implemented? DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy, can be implemented through Land Reform Acts, banking policy, fixation of minimum wages for employees engaged in various employments, welfare schemes for the weaker sections, nuclear disarmament, Panchayati Raj, Equal Remuneration Act in the year 1976, Consumer Protection Act 1986, the 86th Constitutional Amendment of 2002, which inserted a new article, Article 21A. Article 21A. Moving on to the amendments to DPSP. An amendment requires the approval of 2/3 of the members present and their votes. What are the major amendments? 1. Article 31C. Article 31C inserted into the Directive Principles of State Policy by the 25th Amendment Act of 1971, which is seeking the upgradation of DPSPs. Upgradation of DPSPs. Article 31C. Next is the Article 48A. Article 48A, which ensures protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forests and wildlife, which was added by the 42nd Amendment Act in the year 1976. That is the second amendment, Article 48A. Moving to the conclusion. Directive principles of state policies are non-judiciable rights of the people, and they are the guidelines to the central and state governments of India. They are not enforceable by any court. They are considered as a fundamental in the governance of the country, and it is the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws to establish a just society in the country. That is all about DPSP.